and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week, we, your hosts, serve you up a story that you can enjoy. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we're here to tell you a story. Mad recap? Do you want me to do the recap this time? Do you want to do the recap this time?
I'll run through the recap real quick, and then I'll just power through it real quick.
Yep.
And then you guys can add any little bit before we get started if I miss anything super important.
Absolutely.
And all right, so we got this world. These kind of ancient gods all kind of warred each other. They made peace. The 10 that were left created this people. Blah blah blah. Years and years have gone by. Each of the people, now these gods can endow or take certain amount of these different powers connected to whatever kind of thing they were over, the navigation of the oceans, trade and commerce, harvest, or all these different things, right? There's kind of an 11th secret god that kind of no one really knows where his temple is. And we've got kind of an economic system that's pretty close to a social credit system in kind of a post-scarcity environment, but it kind of encourages everybody to do the bare minimum. So not tons of innovation except for on a black market side of thing where different little edges to technology or items or things kind of have an edge and people can trade that on kind of a black market system. We have kind of this, this meditation thing that is being introduced that kind of encourages everybody to kind of let go of some of these base, the things that these gods endowed with everybody that kind of makes the people kind of lose little bits at a time, these different gifts, and it kind of goes back not to its source, but to the kind of the unseen kind of wicked one.
Yeah.
Then you have kind of, I would say, our anti-hero / hero group. He was kind of this not a gladiator fighter, but some kind of a fighter that they would fight. That kind of there was these towns, and then they had kind of a monopoly on some of the different minerals or something, and so then they would every couple years have a match to see which town would have a control factor or whatever it was. And so our anti-hero, I believe it was, did he have a name, Reed?
Yeah, Haggai.
Haggai. He was one of these fighters. However, he lost, and then he got kind of endowed with one of these gems, because what we have as a particular fighting style is people would put they would get it from the black market, but then put a gem that would help kind of power up one particular or several different particular aspects, and then have a cooldown. And so a sea captain would have one, and they would embed it under their skin, and then they could kind of power out a little bit extra of that thing, depending what it was connected to, and then it would power down. And the kind of the concealed one, the dark kind of wicked god guy, he has a black jewel, and so then by doing kind of evil things, cruel, it kind of builds up power to that one thing.
Yeah.
And what this fighter guy Haggai had is not necessarily that gem, but kind of something that the people did was like a tattoo where it had specks of some of this stuff. But anyways, he kind of took revenge against the people, and I don't know if they cheated or something, but anyways, he kind of slaughtered that whole town, right?
Oh yeah, the Butcher of Belleron.
The Butcher of Belleron. So then
he lost,
kind of...
Yeah, he lost totally legitimately. It was totally him that lost. But he was basically offered up. They said, hey, do you want to because he was walking away in shame and stuff. And they're this person offered him this jewel that was this evil concentrate, and he took it into himself and sort of blacked out, and then woke up having sort of killed this whole town in rage, and now is kind of living a vagabond, anti-hero-ish type of life.
Yeah.
Right. And I think so.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think, where we're getting to is then kind of the thought is because all these different gods, they kind of have a giving and a receiving hand. And so for different reasons, Haggai and a group of people are trying to find the dark one's temple for all their own reasons, but ultimately for an idea that perhaps they can get rid of, this wicked aspect. If, like in the other ones, they can give up that aspect back.
Right.
But kind of the unknown thing they don't know, I think, is that, that's not how that works for him. It would just be giving over completely. But they're kind of on their quest. There's a group of them, and they're traveling. And eventually, I think at some point, didn't flesh this out at all, but I think Reed had reoccurring character, and it was I want to say his name started with an L, but I could be wrong.
Landon.
I was close.
He was the wise old man in the story from last spring, Sci-Fi Chakra.
And so I think they'll meet him at some point on their journey, and that's where he'll come in. If anyone has any more thoughts on that as we go along, but I think that's pretty close to where we left it as a quick power through.
The only thing I would add to that is the fact that the gods, their physical forms are still here. People think that they're just statues representing them, but they've given so much of their essence away that they're kind of like these like giant statues. But if enough people give over essence to them, then they could come back. And I would say that there are some that have come back. Maybe there's one. I was thinking like the healing one. She is back. And so she kind of operates this giant, not really a hospital, but just kind of like a house of healing. But she just masquerades as the sort of the head of this order of healers, but really people who come to her, she's the one who's healing them, and maybe it's because people have given up so much of their knowledge of healing that she was able to come back. And, I don't know. I just had that thought. But what story elements did you guys have for this week?
I have unique weapon. No, I mean unique vehicle.
I have wild card.
I have goal. I feel like I want to go first, and then I want to hear about the unique vehicle.
Okay.
That's my personal preference.
Cool.
So the goal is multifaceted. This group of people that are sort of traveling out, they all have different goals. They are all kind of gathered under the goal of find this fabled 11th temple, this fabled 11th god, and sort of see what it is that he holds and see if there's something they can do, because not everyone's convinced that he's evil. Some people are convinced he's evil, and some people just think that he's just another god. He's just another guy with gifts, basically. But there are people in this group who are going to do their best to bring him back, right? And there are people in this group who want to learn about how to bring other gods back. Because this idea that gods could actually come back is kind of a relatively new thing, I think, from how we were talking about it. Like, people didn't really understand that the gods aren't actually gods. They're just really powerful beings. And all we'd have to do is like maybe do a certain amount of work and we could get these really powerful beings back. And maybe that's what they want, because we don't have like a clear picture. So some people, everyone's trying to figure out what's up with this this 11th god, but everyone's kind of bringing their own goals into it, Like, I imagine that this group of people is collected from a bunch of different god followers, you know what I mean? There's like different god followers, and their whole goal is not unified. They talk as if it's unified, but it's not unified. And the one who can see through that is Haggai, who has been hired on as a bodyguard / guide in this wilderness area, right? And he can like see through all of their desires and stuff like that. He can see through it. But he's not really, he can see through like the wickedness of the people who are evil in this group, who are secretly evil. But like, he's done plenty of evil things, so what is, who is he to judge? Sort of anti-hero-ish, like, yeah, everyone's got their own journey kind of thing. So that's a goal. That's the goal. It's not a unified goal. It's specifically not a unified goal. Is that as the story progresses and as they get closer to wherever the end result will be, there will be essentially some conflict built by the fact that no one has the same goal, even though they're all kind of pretending that they do at this point in time. That's the goal.
Cool. I've got a unique vehicle. The name of it is the Slider, and this was invented by actually a professor, but he's a scientist, engineer, physicist, and who follows the god of higher learning, especially in the scientific realm.
Yeah.
And he was actually, his family, he was friends with the followers of the god Bacchus and the people that are the vintners and the distillers. And he is acquainted with the wise old man and has sought out his counsel, and he has procured some of his, land, and he's our recurring character from the sci-fi chakra story, and he is has discovered the secret of distilling the especially blue fruit berry,
right,
and he has developed this potion that gives the the person who drinks this kind of hyper focus, and it's really helpful, especially for like a rocket scientist type guy, right? So he is associated with this seeking the whole, like, this evolving goal of seeking the gods, and perhaps the 11th god, if he's not evil, bringing him back, and all of this. But what he's done is he has been studying the character, the physical properties of these powers, right? And the gemstones and the different gods, that they wield, and he has developed this vehicle. It's like a I want to call it a hovercraft, but it doesn't really. It's powered. It's powered for operations based on power from the god of war.
Okay.
And also, but I mean, not for. I got that. I mixed up. I got ahead of myself. It's powered by he is God, the god of higher learning and understanding. But that's just minimal power for just functioning. The main thing is to engage its circuits to seek out and home in on the powers of the other gods. And he has picked the god of war because he sees this as a potential weapon, right? And he called it the slider because he uses it. He can home in on the power emanating from someone wielding the power of the god of war, and can literally, this slider will teleport to the vicinity of the source of that power. So it's really cool, and it's somewhat limited. He's built it. It has he's found it able to work. It's roughly can handle limited to about 15 personnel. It's a kind of fairly big vehicle, or the equivalent in gear or cargo or whatnot. And then what he's really wanting to do is to home in on the power of the 11th god, the dark power of the 11th god. And then this would be obviously a great weapon. I call it, unique vehicle. This guy's seeing it as a real tool in this struggle. Anyway, so that's his name is Cody Truman.
So it's powered with. So how do they power it with?
Yeah, this slider, it's like a hovercraft, and you can kind of drive it around a little bit. But as far as its teleportation, it does it by homing in on the power of a specific god. So when someone is wielding that power, and because of the statue of the god of war, the wielding of that power is more overt than some of the other subtler, like the ones associated with horticulture and whatnot. They wouldn't. They exert power in a different capacity. He's designed this in order to seek after and home in. Like, he's been successful in literally teleporting this the slider into the vicinity of the person wielding the power. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think so.
Yeah. So that and then the key then is if he can calibrate it so that he can home in on someone wielding the power of the 11th god. That would be a very, I believe it is an actual vehicle, but I don't think he's ever actually pulled off that mission yet. That's still
right. So it's not powered by anything. It's kind of the opposite of that. Opposite of power.
Right. It homes in on the power power elsewhere to do the teleporting.
Okay.
Because it phases in. It slips between the physical dimension.
Yeah.
Into the next location.
It could even be like a remnant of what the original gods, one of their machines.
Oh yeah.
One of their things that was meant to follow them around.
Yeah, this guy has spent his entire academic career trying to understand the properties of the power that's wielded by the statue,
Right.
And then of course his buddy, the wise old man, put him onto the secret blueberry potion, and he's got this ability to hyper focus and was able to connect a lot of the dots just because he's got superpowers. That's a kind of a cool one. Anyway, I'd like to have a slider.
Yeah. How about you, Seth? What's yours?
Mine was wild card.
Well,
which I
do you have something? Do you have something for it?
I have a part of something, and I'll kind of put it out here, and I'll leave it open a little bit in case you guys might have an idea on how to apply it here. But as I was going through it, it's when Rick Ice, because I thought he had a unique vehicle, and then he said weapon earlier, and I'm like, oh, because that's what it is.
Oh, it's a unique weapon?
It's a unique weapon.
Okay.
And so I think in their travels, they come across these ruins, and of course there's like several different people that are all into different things. So, they kind of spend the night at these ruins, and I would say Haggai, or maybe someone else, if there's someone else here that might need this, or perhaps he gets it, but he gets a, I don't know if it'd be a knife or a sword, almost like a sword in the stone idea.
Okay.
Where it's somewhere here, and he finds it, and he picks it up, or pulls it out of wherever it's lodged, and kind of puts it in his pack. But then later, one of the scholarly people, had taken or found some scrolls or books, and kind of bring it out a little bit more that there would have been something there, like a sword in the stone, that I'm trying to think of how to put it, but it would have been, because I'm trying to connect it back to some of this power stuff, which then almost makes me think of the, and I'd almost not want to say it, given that anyone else who hasn't read the Lightbringer series, the knife that they have in there.
The blinding knife?
The blinding
The
knife.
blinding knife.
Yeah, so anybody who hasn't, just pause this and then go and read all of the volumes of the Lightbringer series. You'll be really glad. And the thing that's magical about this is that you can just come right back to where you left off in the story.
Yeah, absolutely magical. So anyways, I realized that kind of what I was thinking was going to be kind of like that as well, but it was not that you could use it on anybody, but I want to say that it then had several of these stones kind of engraved in it.
Right.
Where then it could then be used to basically siphon all of that out of the victim.
Oh, yeah.
Depending which one you were, I guess you say, channeling through it.
Yeah.
And so as they're kind of learning, and the one guy's like, oh, maybe we should go back, and we found it, and if we could find it, maybe someone might be able to get it. So I don't know if maybe he lets them know that he has it, but then kind of has in mind, because then if someone has in mind to use it and basically take other people's power, you could basically use it on a god and siphon their power, all of it, right? So then you have, let's say, this idea is okay, so what if you kill the dark god?
See,
right?
would
you be able to kill the dark god and then you become the dark god, or would there be a way to simply eliminate him? And not that it would let's say, eliminate wickedness, but it would definitely hamper people being able to heighten their destructive power by using him
right.
I'm thinking of the Highlander. When one of the immortals strikes off the head of another immortal, there's the lightning and the power surges in, and he gains the power.
The quickening.
The quickening, yeah. Gains the power of the one that he just eliminated from the final contest or whatever it was. In the end there will be only one kind of deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just had that great picture. I could see the movie of this story being made, with that kind of effect going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of the rough idea, and then I guess kind of like the blinding knife a little bit. You could siphon something, you could possibly channel it to yourself, or you'd have to then stab yourself with it as well, or someone else, or something else.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, again, this is just a tool that the god creatures made in order, as they were experimenting with siphoning their own energy off to create what we know as humanity. Yeah. It's at the end of the day, it's just like a surgical implement for them. But for us, it's like this holy relic.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about with reeds, how maybe it's slightly untested and it doesn't exactly pinpoint. Maybe it's one of those things where it's they have to feed a certain amount of information or a certain amount of essence into the, what's it called, Reed?
Cody Truman, who built it, just calls it the slider. because he said it kind of slides it out of physical dimension and then re-enters in a different location.
So in order to locate it, he kind of has to feed some of the essence to it, and then it sort of pops in kind of close.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like my thought is that they have to feed a certain amount of essence, and then it finds like the next greatest gathering of that, and they have to. It's kind of like this quest: get into the thing, feed the essence in, it'll pop in, and then we come out, and it's like now we have to find where the big chunk of bad guy is in this ruinous area.
Right.
Fight some bad guys. Find the blinding knife, feed the essence that we were able to pick up, find the next one. And the thought process is that we'll eliminate all these, and then it'll get attuned to it, and then we can kind of go to the big bad one.
Right.
Maybe it takes like 5 times. So they've got to kind of like travel to these 5 locations instantaneously, but then come out and kind of do some exploring and do some fighting and, fight a weird creature. And then they have enough of the essence, and then they can just, go to the next one.
Right.
And then pretty soon it'll be completely calibrated, and then you can push the button, which is go to the god, go to the temple of the god. And then it'll be like, okay, I'm acquainted enough now with this essence. Kind of like, I keep thinking about making video game references, which you won't understand, Reed. But you understand what I'm saying. It's like, gets attuned to it enough that you can then say, go to the god, and then it'll be able to find it on the earth and then go there.
This is more concrete than that, but what flashed in my mind is like dialing the Stargate.
Absolutely. It's exactly like dialing. No, it's not like dialing the Stargate.
Yeah.
It's like training a bee to detect explosives. It's like training any animal to do anything.
Yeah.
You give it a little bit, it gets used to it. You give it a little bit, it gets used to it, and then pretty soon it's like, I know exactly how to determine that smell anywhere in the world. And then it can go to that, but it can't do it right away.
Right.
Because it's not used to it.
Right.
And I would think that in that sense, they would have to eventually get closer and closer to it. Because if you give it a little bit of it, it'll come to the next closest place. Because if it's like, let's say, Al Capone and his stash is 3 miles away, and some little other dealer is dealing, 1 mile away, and you have the dog sniff out the drugs, he's going to go to the first guy.
Exactly.
Technically.
Yeah.
Right? But then with him out of the way, you go tell him to find the drugs again. And he's going to then go find the next guy, right? Until it gets back to its source. Because obviously if it's funneling from this source, it might jump around, but eventually it'll kind of hone in closer and closer.
Right. And then the bad guys and the cultists, they have found some way to shield the giant stores that they have, but they can't shield the actual temple because it's just too big or something like that, because you want to leave because it'd be kind of crazy if it was like, all right, we've got it. We're going to go to the next greatest concentration. And then they push the button and it just bing, and you get out and you're like, wait a second, this is the government building. And then it's like, uh-oh, government's bad, guys. Unless they found some way to shield it, whoever the cultists, whoever they are that, who are trying to bring this guy back.
So I've got an idea here.
Let's hear it.
I'll run it by you guys if you think this. So it's like and then there were none kind of situation.
Okay.
Right. So have you guys ever seen that or read that? I think it's a book.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
And then there were none. Basically, it's like this group of people come together. It's like Clue, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All these people together, and they don't really know who each other are. They're kind of all here for a purpose that's together. And then one of them gets killed.
Oh,
and then it's like, who done it? But then another one drops off, and it's like, oh, who done that? And so then as the, victims pile up, who it could be kind of gets narrower and narrower.
Right.
But normally what that, story type has is that, the bad guy is the one that's killing everybody off. Right.
Yeah.
But then I would say as they go along, because everyone's kind of like, oh, yeah, either for science or we got to figure things out and we're doing this. And I'm not saying everybody, but one guy has to be bad. Right. But I'm just saying, like, there's a large enough group that's like, oh, then someone else has gone missing. Right. And then someone else has gone missing. But then what you possibly end up finding out is, maybe they find some of these relics early on and then people start going missing. And maybe there's a little back and forth. some of it's like kind of this evil group kind of trying to get some of these relics, but then ultimately at the end of it, so then you kind of get different groups that kind of friend up and then try to, say, okay, well, we know it's not me and we know it's not you, but, and then like who'd be doing this, and then someone else drops off. But then what you have is, as they go out, if Haggai can kind of see through this, the different people, eventually something will happen and he sees through it, and he's actually taking out these people who most of the people don't know are bad because everyone's putting on a facade, right?
Right.
But then, like, he's the one picking off, the evil people as they poke their head up.
Yeah.
But then kind of as it's going along, it's like, oh, there was 20 of us last night and now there's only, 17. He got 3 more in the night. Who were they? And, what, they were a scientist from this one place, and who might have had something against them. And then so it stirs up a little bit, and then it starts making all these little groups. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
It kind of gives... What's that?
I kind of like this idea that Haggai's own sort of... He doesn't care about getting any more knowledge, right? He doesn't care about getting any more power. He cares about killing this this dark god thing that like ruined his life. And in fact, he might also kill all the other gods too, if he gets the chance, because he's kind of an anti-hero in that way, So I like that a lot, that he is the one sort of doing this, because you also have this potential for him to sort of be, because if he's killing them and also like draining the power using this blinding knife, then he's got pretty soon he's got like a nuclear bomb in his hands of power, that could be unleashed sort of at any time on anything,
Yeah.
That's a thought. So I like that idea a lot.
Yeah. So then, let's see. So they get closer and closer. They get there. Do they meet the guy? Is the guy still a statue? Does he come alive a little bit? Does he try to kill him? And then that actually brings him into physical form. Because then thinking he's going to take him out by using the knife, but then he absorbs all that. Because that almost seems to be how that one works, is almost antithetical to the way the other ones do.
Part of my thought is that when they were using the lots of the dark essence to train the skimmer,
the slider,
mm-hmm. What they didn't understand, that as they were burning it to train the slider, it was all sort of going back to that guy.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And it was kind of like this, like, so by the time they get there, he's like all juiced up, and whether he's back, I don't know. He could be somewhat back. He could be able to, project his image, possess willing creatures, possess willing people, kind of control things, perception of things around where he is. But maybe the actual himself is not back. Like it would just be too much, That's kind of what I was thinking. And so then like they finally get to where he is, and then there's some kind of fight to the center, Yeah.
I think after they pick off most of the people that have nefarious intentions, some of them then, who they don't get, break off and go to the temple, and then they kind of gather their people have gathered, and then they come up, and there's, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 of them left that had, more better intentions. And now they're like decked with all these different relics, or their own different like gems that they've, and then like you said, kind of this fight scene as they're, fighting their way in, to try to get this guy.
The question is, so I had a couple interesting ideas. One was this knife. My thought process is that at the end of the story, there is enough stored up essence inside this knife that he could like significantly bring one of the other gods back.
Oh yeah.
He could basically bring another god back to the same place that this dark god is.
Right.
Able to project his image and stuff like that. And he has to kind of decide if he is going to do that, or, if he's going to kill all the gods, or if he's just going to kill this one.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this last fight happens, or I don't know what the end result is of it, but
the only idea I have comes way too close to suicide, and I don't really want to do that.
Suicide for Haggai?
Possibly.
Well, self-sacrifice.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a way, because basically, like he comes to the realization that, the way that this guy works is antithetical, to the way the other ones work. And so if he were to actually stab him with this, he would then receive everything that was in that knife, right?
Absolutely.
However, the only thing that comes to mind is if he stabs himself with it, almost not in a way to endow himself with the power, but it would ultimately not turn him into a god, but it would fry him out, thus basically nullifying anything that was stored up there, not going back to any of them.
Yeah.
Which ultimately would kill him. But it would then
I think
basically keep the other guy from getting
I think that maybe, have you seen the Noah movie?
Yeah.
Seth? There's this really interesting take on the Noah movie, on Noah, that Noah believes that when God told him to build the ark and that to save his family, that what he was there for was to save the animals. And that once they were on the boat, he made arrangements for his whole family to basically kill themselves because God wanted to save the animals, not the evil humans. And it's an interesting thought process. It's like it makes sense with a human who feels guilty for everything that he's done. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think that Haggai definitely considers that as the best option. He considers that to be kind of the best way to end it all. But I don't want that to be how it ends.
Yeah, neither do I, but that was the only thing that was coming to mind. But
that's kind of like, that's his plan, basically. He's like sure that this is how this will work, and maybe he's even tested it on other people. Maybe he's stabbed someone and had it in the giving mode, and it's basically just like fried them. And he's like, well, I know that I have the highest capacity to sort of take this energy because of all of my implants and everything like that. So if worse comes to worse, I will stab myself and I will sort of take all this capacity unto myself. And then I also know how to create heat, using this power that I have, so I can stab myself and then create a sun. And that will I'll use all the power plus I'll destroy the area,
Yeah.
That's kind of his working theory, about how this is how it's going to end, he says to himself, I think about the prodigal son, at least if I could just be a servant in your house, this is how I'll seek redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Unless that's how you want it to end.
No, I'm thinking part of a twist, so that obviously the way that some of the dark implant works is by being vengeful, being angry, and doing actions out of anger and stuff, or whatever, heightens its power. And so you would have to have something that is the opposite of that. I don't know how to it's like that idea of again, you've probably had it in video games where it's the more you actually hit it, the stronger it gets.
Right.
And so you have to not attack it for it to use up its own thing, kind of idea, where it's
yeah.
I'm trying to think of something where maybe not himself, let's stay away from that, but then
so what if it was something like this? They get to the main area, they fight their way in, the slider is able to get into I have this kind of idea of an underground cave, cathedral with light coming in at certain places, and kind of a statue that's 3 stories tall, kind of half buried in rubble with its hand out.
Yeah.
And it's made of a black granite, and there's cultists there, and they're fighting, and everyone's perceptions are being all weird,
Mm-hmm.
And Haggai is standing there with the knife, and the dark one is there talking to him, and he's talking to everyone who everyone's fighting has the faces of everyone they loved, and it's just it's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And this is just a thought process I had, but Haggai understands what's in this knife, and he also understands what this sort of mounting threat is, right? Because just with the meditation thing that's happening all around the world, minute by minute now, this dark creature is gaining in power, he's you can see it as he is getting more powerful minute by minute.
Yeah, it's like in Ghostbusters when Bill Murray says, "No, you have to just blank out your mind. You can't think, because whatever you think, ultimate evil will inhabit that." And then all of a sudden, what did you do, Ray? And I couldn't, Dan Aykroyd says, I couldn't blank my mind. I tried to think of the least and the most innocuous thing possible. I thought of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Now we have ultimate evil embodied in a 40-story tall Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Now, I'm sorry, that's a great departure, but I'm trying to picture, this is the battle, like, what do you do? Where do you find a safe repository for this evil power,
Right. And so what my thought is what Haggai ends up doing is he ends up going to the skimmer, the slider, and stabbing the knife in and releasing all of the energy back. Yeah. Basically training it to find the god of war, the god of the sea, the god, every single one. It's got tons and tons of units of, billions of units of essence of each one.
Right.
And then basically maybe they'll escape. Maybe they use that to travel back to the god of war's statue or the god of architecture statue or the whichever, or the god of whatever, whichever one. Yeah. Because now it's trained to find those, and so it, because it's like it was so much essence that, like, of course, it was trained immediately.
Right.
Okay, I've got it. Okay, because he works. Because of course, giving to him is actually, or taking from him is giving to him.
Okay.
And giving to him is also giving to him. Okay, the idea popped in my head. So maybe Haggai figures it out, right? And surrenders the knife to him. And he has the wrong idea of it as well, being that it now contains so much power.
Okay.
The Dark One uses it on himself, believing that it's going to give him that power at a quicker rate. However, because it's, I don't know, if maybe it's like that, I'm looking back to see if you were looking back to see if I was looking back to see if you were looking back to see if I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me kind of idea.
Right.
It like goes back and forth. I'm hoping I have this right in my head. So then he cuts himself with it to receive, thinking that he's then using it in a receiving the power that it has.
Yeah.
But because he only takes, it's like it does the other thing, and it actually drains him.
It's like a double negative.
Because the giving takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
But because he thinks that, then it's like the blinding knife where it can give and take, dependingly. Now that it has, let's say, the power stored up on it, it will give him all these powers, right? Because it has some of all, but a lot of, the essence that he wants. Right. But instead of receiving it, it then only takes from him and then returns him to stone in a very incapacitated state along with the knife.
That's a great story.
So yeah, he kind of kills himself.
Yeah.
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 And it's like the poison just implodes on itself and he just is canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just seeing it where like he kind of like makes a connection in his head and all his friends or whatever are fighting, and they like look over and they see him like surrendering and they're like, no. And then he's like, gets flat back. Oh, you fool. No, I have ultimate power or whatever. Then he cuts himself. And,
that's like
and then basically turns to, stone or marble. But then along with the knife, because then it nullifies it out because it completely drains it. But it's like it's there, but it's not there. But then you couldn't get the knife because it then is part of the statue with him as well.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
The only thing I'm thinking about is what does that do? What about the people who are practicing the meditation thing? Does it start over again? Is he dead?
Well, it just starts over with the original 10 gods, right?
I mean, but the idea being is that this god was the one who introduced things like fear and selfishness.
Yeah.
So it could just be that the knife like took out all of the remaining essence that was inside of him.
Yeah.
So maybe it like stuck into him. So it was stabbed into the statue, and then like the statue had like started to move a little bit at this point. And when he noticed that it was happening, he grabbed it and was able to pull it out, but then it was too late. So it's like, you can see what I'm doing, Reed, here, but it's like the statue has the knife pulling out, but it's like clamped onto the knife.
Yeah, yeah.
So they can't get the knife out anymore and all the remaining essence. So it's like he's got to start over from square one again.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the powers and blessings that he was giving to his followers are all falling away because he's lost a bunch of influence. But he's not gone. He's just put back to sleep again.
Yeah.
So now men's wickedness is men's wickedness, not men's wickedness blessed by this awful thing.
Right.
And if you want to think about it, it would still go to him, but it's constantly being solidified into the knife.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Did we ever come up with a name for this story? What are we calling it?
We called it The Gods Are Here.
Oh, yeah.
But I like it. Anyone have any other cool ideas to add as a tail end to this?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you like this story as much as we liked it, send us a message on Twitter about it at @GetsBetterCast, or send us an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. At getsbettercast@gmail.com. We are happy to take suggestions, comments, criticisms, friendly amendments. I am always open to a friendly amendment. And until next time, I will say, just wait, because it gets better.